Welcome to the Explosive Strength Podcast with Jared Binney. On this episode, I'm going to go over how I approach things for when a kid comes in here to max on their bench or their squat, and going to go over some stuff on what I'm finding out about training powerlifters. So here we go. So start with about how I go out with about training or maxing a kid on bench. What I generally do, and people have heard me talk about before, is I usually use the 5% method, the rule of five, or kind of whatever you want to say about that. So if a kid comes in and says his max is 215, well, you take 5% of 200, which is 10. And so I'll usually start with whatever they tell me, and I'll work my way backwards. So if they say their bench max is 215, I'll write 215 down. I'll go 5% above that and go to 225, and I'll go 5% below that and go to 205. And so then those are my 1 rep attempts. And so if I'm out of breath, I'm sorry, I just did my bench warm up, and I just did this month in February. I'm starting off with the 110s for 20 instead of the 100s. I'm just trying this experiment, and it's taking my breath away a little bit more than I would like. So anyway, so we go 215 for 1, 225, and 205. So they said 215 plus 5% is 225, minus 5% is 205. And if they can do 205, I may go to 185 for like 2 to 3 reps. Then I'll go to 165 for like 3 reps, maybe 155 for 3, and 135 for about 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 warm-up sets is what I like. So you see how I started at 205, just give them a range. I'm at 215, then gate went down to 5% at 205 and up 5% from 215 is 225. And then for that, I just kind of look back. I know if they can do 205 for 185 is going to be like 2 or 3 reps, because they said their bench max is 215. But you know, sometimes at school, the kids will do like use their fingers or what anything to help or spot the bar. I don't, when we max here, when we work out here, if someone touches the bar, that rep does not count. So we don't count the rep if the bar is touched. So if you got a set of 5 and you go to 4, and on your way up at 5, you don't get it, someone helps ride the bar out with you, the 5th rep does not count. Most of the time, well, all the time, 99% of the time, unless I'm spotting, unless I see something that they need to work on, maybe a forced rep. Usually we don't do forced reps. If you're going up for 5 and you miss it, the bar is pulled immediately. We do not force that rep out, because if that's like on your 3rd set, you're going to ruin set 4 and you're going to ruin set 5. So even if you got 2s and 3s, once we do not get it, we pull it. We don't force any reps out. We'll take a little bit longer rest between that set and the next set, and hopefully try to get the same, if not 1 more. So then that has happened. Like the other day, person got a 4 out of 5 on the first set, and this person was doing 4 sets of 5 that day, and the next time they started off with a 4, and the next 3 sets were all 5s. That shows me that the warm-up is poor. Someone did not warm up the right way, and that's kind of how, when they write the numbers back to me, how I can see that. So I wrote 185 for 2 to 3 reps, because I don't really know if the kid's max is 215. It's just, I'm guessing. And then we go to 165 for 3, 155, and 135. Just random weights, just 135, because if he's going to go 225, at least 5 reps there. 155 for 3, 165 for 3, 185 for 2 or 3. Then after our warm-ups, I usually tell them to rest about 5 minutes. Then we'll go to 205 for 1, rest 4 to 5 minutes, 215 for 1, rest 4 to 5 minutes, do 225 for 1. Now, sometimes kids can come in here and beat their max on their bench. One kid said his bench max was 175, but he actually got 185. A lot of times at school, they're not getting adequate rest because they have a time block. They have to be in and out. So sometimes if they don't get the luxury of taking 4 to 5 minutes between their sets like that, they may not getting the most weight they can just because the rest is too short. So that's how I would approach someone trying to warm up for max. And if you was going to go, let's say if you wanted to bench 315, hey, I max 315, Jared. Let's go there. Let's go 315 is where I would start. 5% would be 330. Because now we're at 300, so 5% of 300 is 15. 315 for one, 330. Then would go 300. Then I may even go down another 5% for 285. Then maybe 265 for two. 245 for three. 225 for four. And maybe 185 for four. And then I just leave 135 times how many ever reps they wanted to do 135. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be 5 warm-up sets just because the kid's stronger. But once we got to 265, we went to 285, 300, 315, and then 330. So that's how I'd approach someone with their bench max. And a lot of times the kids are very close to what they can bench max. So it's a lot easier for me to gauge that. Now, the way I approach the squat is totally different, because when they got a squat, I always start them off at 135, whether we're going to box squat max, whether we're going to regular squat max, or whatever. I'll ask the kid, hey, there was a good example. There was this kid came in the other day, brand new, never seen him squat before in my life. I said, what's your squat max? Well, I normally do 225 at school. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, let me see what 135 looks like. Had a hard time getting 135 for three because I was going to box squat max him versus his regular squat. And the thing about the squat is you never know if they go to high school or wherever they're going, is a lot of times in high school, their squat depth is poor. We do have a local high school here that does make sure that the kids squat at a good depth. And so if they come in from that school and they say, hey, Jared, our squat depth, I squat this, they're normally pretty good. And I know I crap a lot of times on some of the high school, but there may be some high school coaches out there that actually listen and try to educate themselves on this stuff. So sometimes I'm talking and putting people in a general hole, and sometimes it may not be, but for the most part, what I get around here, it's all about the same crap. So anyway, the kid said he squatted 225. And so then all right, let's start with 135, because they say they can squat 225, even you can go 50 pounds less, that's a pretty significant difference. So I just had him do 135 for a set of three, and he struggled. I was like, oops, well, he ain't squat 225. And because you never know what the depths are at school. And so I said, well, we're just gonna stay there, because the way he moved it, I want you to do an additional 4 sets of 3 at 135. Get better at squatting, get better at box squatting, get better at sitting and exploding. We don't touch and go. The box squat is a tool, not a device we go touch at. We sit and explode. We gotta teach the kids how to explode from nothing, 0 to 100 miles an hour as fast as possible. So we gotta work on your rate of force development. And once he gets used to box squatting, then I can max him. Being that he was doing 135 for sets of 3, he may have been between 155, 165, not anywhere close to 225. And here's another example of a kid. I had one kid came and said, Jared, I squatted 205. I said, okay, well, let's start off at 135 and let's work our way up there from there. Well, his squat max was 155 off the box. And I said, geez, these kids are so far off. And that's why I don't start with 225, or like the bench examples. I don't start with 225 and then go to 235, and then 215, then 205, then 185, 155, and 135. Just because you never know what you're going to get when someone says they squat, because sometimes the kids are squatting with their hips high enough to where they're not getting squat depth. When we squat here, when I'm looking for a squat, I use the international standard USAPL IPF. The fold of the hip goes below the top of the knee. And so that's what I look for when the kids come in here and they squat. That's the squat depth that I'm looking for. That's international standard, that's IPF standards. So you go around the world and do that. And sometimes these kids say, Jared, I got parallel. Well, sometimes a high school coach may say the back of the leg, the hamstring's parallel to the ground. Sometimes they may say the top of the thigh. It's the fold of the hip. And so that's why I always blast a lot of people, because they make up these standards. They don't go off of a say a world standard like the IPF or the USAPL standard of squat depth. They just kind of go off of what their high school coach told them, or so forth and so on. Like I got this kid that goes to this other high school. These high schools around here are totally different. So, but sometimes you get the same result from a kid. Like the kids I told you yesterday, where they went to high school, been in weight training, they go to 2 different high schools. They've been spending their time lifting weights for 6 to 8 months, and they came back and they ran the same 40 they did 8 months ago. Now, and if you listen to the other podcast, you know I'm trying to get a 1/10 of a second off their 40 each month. And I don't have the paper in here in front of me like I did yesterday to tell you what they went from, the 5.9 to a 5.5 or a 5.9 to a 5.3, somewhere in that range. They were improving. One kid was improving 1/10 of a second per month. Goes to high school weight training, works out, goes through sports season, comes back and runs the same damn thing he did when he left 8 months ago. I don't want to be the same I was 8 months ago. And if you're working out, you don't want to be the same either. You at least want to be stronger and faster. I did not test their strength levels, but sometimes they do not go. Like I had a kid that left here one time. He went to a very famous academy that a lot of kids love to go to. It's not even the state of Georgia. He left here with a 225 bench max, came back. He left here with 245, he came back with a 225. So he left explosive with a 245, comes back 225. I said, what the hell do y'all do down there? He said, well, we work on a lot of injury prevention stuff. I said, you know how you prevent injury? You get freaking stronger, you don't get freaking weaker. And so I don't know what the hell people think. You know, you have to spend time getting stronger. And sometimes getting stronger, like I said the other day, it's boring because you got to do the same crap over and over. You got to come in here and bench. You're going to come in here and bench, and you're going to come in here and bench, and most of the time it's going to be heavy. Most of the time you're going to be fighting to get your reps for what I want. Then you're going to appreciate the rest period that I give you between your sets, because once I give you a shorter rest period, you miss more reps and you understand what I've been talking about. And so once I'm teaching these kids, they want to take longer. No, and then you can regulate them to make sure they're not taking too long, but at least they're not trying to rush through and get it done. It's not a workout, it's a training session. We're trying to get numbers. We're trying to train things into the body, and the body sometimes does not want to learn, so we have to train it into it. And if we switch the exercise up every day, if we came here and did bench one day, incline the next time you came in, we did floor press, we did decline. We not only have a freaking decline bench, I think it's a waste of time. We did close grip incline. If we come in here and did close grip floor press, we did ultra wide bench. If we switched up our bench all the time, we would have never trained that specific thing into us. You need to work on one. Then once you can hammer it, regular bench for 2 months in a row, regular bench with chain for the next 2 months in a row, regular bench with an additional chain, or take the chain out and go back to what you would. Or you can regular bench for 2 months in a row. You can regular bench with chains 2 months in a row. Then you can regular bench, pause benching 2 months in a row. So you got 2, 4, 6 months of exercise. Then by the time you go from regular benching 2 months with chain, regular benching, pause 2 months, and by the time you go back to regular benching as you did at the beginning 6 months, it would still be different enough to where there's a minimal enough change that you're still repeating the same pattern to where you can still get stronger. And the reason I speak on this and the bench press stuff is because I actually train people. I train myself. I train all the kids that come in here. And some of these other places around me that, or whatever, they'll have different trainers that come in because the trainer gets a new job or whatever. The owner's not always doing the work. They're always having someone else come in. So if you were going to send your kid and you got, hey, Jared, what happened to little Johnny today? I don't know, I got to get with trainer A. So once I talk to him, I'll let you know. Well, when someone calls me, I want to know what's going on with little Johnny. So, hey, Jared, what happened to little Johnny today? Well, he didn't warm up enough, so he missed his first set, and he tried to just rush through the workout, and it didn't take his time, so he kind of missed some other sets and reps. So I'm just trying to teach him. And sometimes kids are not perfect, and so you can't expect the kids to be perfect all the time, but you can't expect to teach them. But sometimes when you got too many people involved, and you got too many trainers, well, the next trainer you hire may not have that same thought process. They may have a different mentality. They may bring something different to the table. Well, different's not always good either. And so if you got rotation of different trainers coming in and throughout, it's going to be harder for you to get the results you need, because the kid, it can kind of confuse the kids and things like that. And so I like to mess with everything, because if I'm all the time training the kids, and you got some people that are very popular on Instagram that you see, they train themselves. They're working out with themselves all the time. They don't post videos of kids that they've trained or athletes that they train. It's usually mainly them. And so they know how to work themselves out, but you got to understand and learn how to work others out, train others, and help others be better than what you are or what you were. And I've done that, especially with the bench press and the squat. I found my list of 400 plus pound benchers. These are all high school kids. I had Hayden here with a 440 bench, high school. Ryan W. with a 405 bench. Alex with a 400 bench. Colton with a 450 bench. Kyle with a 405. Cody with a 415. Ryan S. with a 445. Colin with a 435. Mike with a 420. Jameson with a 405. And Grayson with a 425 bench. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 high school benchers that have benched 400 pounds plus as a high school kid. And think about that kid, Jameson. Jameson was the kicker. You heard me talk about it all the time. When people leave here, they tend to get weaker. So Jameson benched 405 here. Goes to kick at a college. I can probably say he was at Northern University, D1. They D1 FBS, so he played in big time D1 football. He went to college and he benched 375, outbenched almost every lineman except maybe one or two. They could not believe how strong the kicker was. Well, he also had a 405. He had a 405 bench at one point, but he went to 375, and 375 still kicked everybody else's ass. And so that's this kicker you want to sneak up on. He also had a 40-inch vertical. Mike here, he benched 420. He was a lineman. He was 6'2", 300 pounds with a 34-inch vertical. And so it's all these things that I've learned from every one of these kids that have succeeded. Not only were they strong, but they were explosive, because how you measure human body explosive is jumping ability, whether it's broad jump or vertical jump. You don't just assume so much, you test to see what it is. And people want to do freaking power cleans all the time. Power cleans, well, some of these kids power clean at 300 pounds come here, they can't even jump a 30-inch vertical. So what the hell's the point in trying to say that you're explosive? If you watch a lot of these kids that come in from all over, do these cleans, they're not even getting hip extension. Well, the main thing that they're trying to do in sports is to get you to explode through the hip. And if you watch them clean, they don't even reach triple extension where the ankle, the knee, and the hip all extend. They pop the bar up high enough to where they can squat under it, and they never extend through the hip. So they're not really working the dynamic effort or the hip in a dynamic fashion like you would if you were to jump, because actually when you jump, your hips extend and you actually come off the ground. So jumping is more dynamic than a power clean. So it's got the word power in it, but if you're not doing the technique right, it's not going to do anything. So jumping is a lot safer than doing power clean exercise all the time, especially when you're dealing with a bunch of kids who don't even want to do the power clean in the high schools in the first place. They don't even want to do it in college, but they will do it. You got a lot more kids in the collegiate world that want to do it than you do in the high school world. So if you're trying to teach someone that does not want to do something in the first place, and you're trying to force them to get reps on it, that's not very good. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Also, the thing about the bench press, if you've heard me talk about the main thing when you learn how to bench, once you learn how to arch and set your shoulders, you've got to almost corkscrew the humerus into the shoulder socket to where you take your shoulders out of the bench press movement and it becomes more arm and tricep dominant. Your chest does not develop as much, and I didn't believe Louis when he told me several years ago, but then the chest acts as a stabilizer instead of the mover, and the arms are the mover. And so once you learn how to bench, then your primarily bench gains are gonna be from practicing your bench. When I tell these kids you come in here to bench, you lay down and bench, not just to get your reps, but you need to practice how you bench. You need to work on bar acceleration. You need to work on your arch. You need to work on and practice your bench like you go out there and practice your sports skill. And then once they get that perfected, they usually skip incline at the high schools around here. So we'll go, and if you lag on your incline, it will hold your bench back. And so sometimes we'll go to incline, we'll do close grip incline. Then I can vary to different incline grips because they hate incline. So then I can vary, because I'm not really worried about driving the incline up as fast as I am the bench. So we may pause incline, we may close grip incline, we may regular incline. Then I will change how the exercise is done, because I care that it's done and not how fast it's progressed, because the residual effect of them doing that, and if they do too much, and if I program the incline in like I did the bench, that would be very strenuous on them and they would not be recovering from the bench. So that's why I can change the incline and contradict myself on what I was saying about the bench and having to stay with the same thing all the time, because the bench I'm trying to drive up. So when I go to incline, I could switch the exercises and how we do it. I can change the sets and reps. I can change that a little bit more often to make it not so monotonous, because if I beat that into them like I'm beating the bench, they will not recover before their next workout and they'll have a crappy bench workout. So that's why the incline can be different. Then some days we may even skip incline in general. And then after that, the most important thing is the triceps. You have to learn how to do the triceps. And sometimes for warm up, I may have some people do the ropes for warm up for the triceps. But some people, I had a parent the other day, or a guy was in here, he said, Jared, I feel the ropes a lot better in my tricep because I can really feel like I can extend. And I told him it's not about the rope, about what you feel. It's about the angle of the tricep and the pressing movement that's going to transfer to the bench. So we use a straight bar when we do our tricep press downs all the time. We don't just do a rope, because the angle is not going to transfer to the angle that we are going to bench with. So usually I'll put my thumbs over the top of the bar and I'll do tricep press downs with my wrist cocked up, not straight, because when I bench, my wrists are bent. And so I'm specifically trying to get the press downs to transfer over to my bench. We stop at our chest, and I can create a video later on about how to go about doing that. So, so I've got some other stuff to talk about, but I'm running out of time because I've got to go somewhere. But like I said, I train myself and I train others. And by me dealing with these people all the time, I learn just as much from them as they do from me. Because sometimes you hear this research, or you look at this, or these different things, and everybody wants to try something different. Well, sometimes if I've got kids here long enough, I can try that stuff because they're not scared. I know they've been here long enough, and they've been here long enough to trust me. And look, this may not work. Well, let's try it anyway. You know, they're open to trying it, and then that way we can see if it does or does not work. We got open communication, and I can be a consultant, and I can try to help them. And when it does not work, like that one time when I was training Ben Baggett, most of you, if you've heard the why we box squat, now, I'm gonna talk Baggett. Switch this real quick. I had this little kid. We were squatting different ways. Well, I switched the way he was squatting for the last month or so, and he lost 0.3 of a second in his 40-yard dash because I was not box squatting him. I introduced box squat back to his routine last month, which was January. And once we just squatted for 1 month, we got our 0.3 of a second back. So February, we're box squatting again to see if we can get improvement further upon that. Not only that, he broke his vertical jump record and he broke his broad jump record. We test the vertical, we test the 20, the 40, the vertical, and the broad jump every month. 2 jumps to make sure our jumps are progressing. That's our explosiveness. And so once I switched him back to box squat, he broke his all-time vertical jump, he broke his all-time box record, and he gained his 3/10 of a second back on his 40-yard dash. And so I thought that was, and the kid's a shorter kid, a younger kid, and I've done that for some of the younger kids in the past, but I usually, like I told you, I usually like to squat my younger people regular squat so that they learn how to squat, then I can switch into box squat later, but this kid's here been long enough to where I can box squat him. And sometimes the kids in the past, like if you heard me talk about this girl, she would box squat, box squat, box squat, box squat, improvement. Well, I'll switch to a regular squat, lost a 10th of a second. Regular squat next month, lost a 10th of a second again. Box squat the next month, and we got our running speed back to our all-time best. Then we kept box squatting and kept getting better. But sometimes we have to sacrifice improvement because sometimes we don't. Once I get enough results out of the box squat, I do like to switch them to regular squat so we can build some more structure. Then we go back to squatting on the box. Or if they can handle it, I like front squats. But a lot of kids want to bitch and complain about holding the bar in front, so we don't get the front squat like we need to. So, and the height of the box, sometimes I'll go next door to the 24 gym and I see that the box heights have changed. I'm like, why in the hell are these kids squatting on such a high box? And I did this experiment with Ben. Ben's probably about 5'10", maybe close to 6 foot, somewhere in that range. Our boxes are 12 inches. We have a 6-inch blue foam pad, and the blue foam pad is soft. So it's almost like a couch cushion, like a soft couch cushion. So actually when you sit down, you can almost feel the box up under the soft pad because you're squishing that pad pretty good. And squatting on a soft pad is very, very different than squatting on a hard pad. So we've got a 12-inch box, 6-inch foam pad, and we're almost to the box with that foam pad sitting on it. Well, I moved Ben's 40-yard dash. I don't have his numbers over here. They were improving and improving. I think he got down to a 4.8 40-yard dash. Then we moved his box height up one notch. So it's got the box, it's got holes in it so I can adjust it per inch. So we went from a 12-inch box to a 13-inch box. And once we did that, he went from a 4.8 to a 4.9 to a 5. I said, oh shit, we need to go back to what I call the low box. So once we went back to the low box, he went back to a 4.8, and I think he eventually got a 4.7. So just that 1-inch difference in the box height had a real big difference in this 40-yard dash time. And sometimes that's why you hear me say I'll do it for 2 months in a row, because 1 month could be a fluke. So if I do it for 2 months and it's still another negative, then I go back to it and it gets back to where it was at its best. That's letting me know. And over years and times after training all these kids, I noticed this stuff. And at the end of each month, guess who tests all the 40-yard dashes? I do. I test the vertical. Because I want to be involved in the training and I want to be involved in the testing so I can see what is and what is not working. And over time, I've gotten better and dialed in to what works the best for most of these kids. And that's why I'm saying I'm training. Not only that, is I'm doing the stuff myself so I can see for myself, because I know how hard my effort is that I'm giving into each exercise or whatever it is that I'm doing. You know, like I said, I don't have the kids pause safety squat bar squat like I do, because if they're scared of missing their rep, they're not going to, guess what? They're not going to pause. Well, I don't care if I miss my rep. I'm going to go down, pause, and accelerate. If I miss my rep, I miss my rep. And sometimes I get depressed when I miss my reps. But I'm not going to mess up what I'm doing. If I'm saying I'm going to pause squat, I'm going to go pause squat. And you see a lot of these kids, like I had this kid going to this other high school. He said he squatted, I think, 245, 255. Well, I come in and max him where I want his, like the inguinal fold, the fold and hip below the top of the knee. It was only 205. I said, man, it's not about how much you squat at school, because the way you squat at school, when you get your hips too high and that fold's not there, and if you look at studies that show the stress on the knee, the stress on the ACL joint is a lot higher. Like this kid said, he can't squat very low because he don't want to stress his ACL out. Well, if you look at the research and if you look at the knee forces, when your hips are actually higher than your knee, you're actually putting more force on your ACL. So I don't know where these kids are getting this information. And the doctors don't look at this squatting. The doctor's not concerned with getting stronger. The doctor's only concerned with fixing what they got to, getting in and getting out. Surgery is the most fun part about being a doctor. It's not always diagnosing the people. So I look at that and I try to educate people, but sometimes when I'm trying and I know these things, and I know because I've been experienced to it, I go through it, I've seen it, and I've seen it, I'm involved in it all the time. I'm here 6-7 days a week. And so I'm always trying to learn, and I'm always trying to help these kids be better than what they are. And when they say, hey, I'm not king squat, I said, you're actually putting more force on it. Well, that ain't what this person says. How do you get from trying to help the kids versus what someone else says? And that's kind of frustrating on my part. But just like at least Ben was able to experiment for 2 months with a higher box. When we went back to lower box, it got better. So everything's about trial and error and experimenting and going from point A to point B. And sometimes, the people that come here, or these coaches or whatever, I told Louis Simmons a couple of years ago, people don't care about results. They only care about what's different. If I can show a kid a cool different exercise, or if I got a load of parents in here and I show the kids something different, ooh, they're like, oh, I ain't never seen that before. But they want me to do that all the time. But doing that cool thing all the time is not going to get the results that we need in order to get the kids better. And I showed them the folders, and I've got a booklet over there that I've had the kids where I've had 8, 12, 13 months of results showing them they're going from here to here, a 24-inch vertical to a 36-inch vertical, a 5.4 40-yard dash to a 4.5 40-yard dash, and you can see it over time how it's changed. I had one kid go from a 6.4 to a 4.6. Over time, you can see how much this has changed. You can see the vertical jump start at 18 inches and end at 38. I don't even think that kid ever got the 40, but he went from an 18-inch to a 38-inch vertical, from a 6.4 to a 4.6, very significant difference in running speed. And like you had the kids other day went from a 7.4 40-yard dash to a 5.5 40-yard dash. Those results are in that book to show that over time, if they're consistent and they come here month per month, they will get better. And you've seen I read some folders the other day that this girl was coming in, she was getting better. Then all of a sudden, she wasn't getting better anymore. But then if you look at her history of when she's coming to the gym, very inconsistent because they were not coming with the team. So sometimes these parents are going to have to make these kids, if they want the results, to come in here and do it all the time. But you know what? If they see them squatting and benching up, they think they can do that at school. And like I told you, at school, when they're going there, you heard me give the example, those 2 kids were 8 months out of here and came back ready to say, so what they're doing is not working, because you know what they're not doing? They're not testing all the time to see what's working for most of the kids or not. Just like that lacrosse team I told you all about that I trained. They're all improving. Whatever they got first session, they almost duplicated the results in the second session and beat the team average. And I think the reason they were better in the second session is because once the girls saw improvement after the first session, they were more consistent in the second session. And so it's all about consistency and trying and maybe doing the same shit over and over again, like I talked about in the same shit episode. But guess what? Same stuff over and over again is not always fun. And sometimes when I show these people these results, that's great, but they're looking for a different exercise or something different things. No, it may be the same thing, and it may be the programming, like I talked about the other day, about monitoring squat speeds in order to figure out where the kid's at and stuff. And if you got a school that's going to give them a 12-week bench program, and you can reach that same result in 3 weeks instead of 12 weeks, why not go for it and get it? If you're doing a program at school, and if you're that kid that pace of that program is perfect for you, then you're that kid that's not enough stimulus for you to progress, you're not going to get really better. Then you got that kid that the weight's too heavy, so it's one kid's perfect, one is not enough stimulus, and one is too much stimulus. What do? That's only a 33% improvement rate. Only 63% of kids can get better. What about the other 66%? Well, you see those kids, I had some other kids I talked about the other day, they actually got worse on the 40 from the year later, but they ain't been coming. So that's all I can say. And later on tomorrow or next day I do a podcast, I'm gonna get in what I'm finding out about powerlifting and training these powerlifters. So anyway, thank y'all for watching. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Instagram at Explosive Mechanics, Twitter at Explosive MEC, Facebook, Explosive Mechanics. If you like the podcast, please like and share. It really helps me out. I really appreciate the support of the people and everything else. Thanks. Y'all have a good day.